Treasure Planet is one of the weirdest relationships with film I have. I didn't watch it growing up. In fact, I didn't watch it until I was in my early adult time at university. And since then, I've had nothing but love and obsession with it. By buying merchandise, playing the video games, and even getting a literal permanent tattoo of it on my body. So why did a film that seemingly I don't really have any nostalgia for affect me massively? The film was one of Disney's first ever box office bombs. It's not a musical, which, given how that's what I was studying at the time and seemingly wanted to do with my life, you'd think I'd be obsessed more with The Lion King or even Frozen.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
But Treasure Planet had a uniqueness like no other film I've watched. So if you're a fan of this film, and given how you've clicked on this video, I can only assume you are, I'm going to explain why I love Treasure Planet, and why you should also be loving it as well.
Coming to theaters November 27th.
The first thing you notice when watching this film is how it starts. A lot of Disney movies open with a grand opening, a big musical number, or even a big event to kick the film off. Treasure Planet, however, is slower. You hear the quiet score by James Newton Howard as the title fades in, and you hear this narration.
On the clearest of nights, when the winds of the Ethereum were calm and peaceful, the great merchant ships with their cargoes of Arcturian solar crystals felt safe and secure.
There's something so calming about it. It feels safe and warm, and while we eventually see a group of pirates seemingly trying to plunder a ship, we then find out it's nothing more than a storybook being read by our lead character, Jim Hawkins. I love this opening as it would be easy to just show Captain Flint seemingly opening the plot of the movie. He steals treasure, and his treasure is out there to be found. But everything we see is from Jim's perspective. This isn't just the plot, it's Jim's dream. Jim's passion, his sense of adventure luring the audience in. What follows is a scene setting up his relationship with his mother, but we'll get to her a little bit later. We then go through one of the greatest transitions in cinema history.
When the winds of the Ethereum, so inviting in their promise of flight and freedom, made one's spirit soar.
Ah, that transition is so cool. Jim as a character from an aesthetic point is designed brilliantly, giving us a classic rebellious teenager. His hair, leather jacket, he's even modelled after James Dean, seemingly one of the coolest performers ever. But everything reflects how he is as a person. In one scene it tells us everything we need to know. 12 years later, Jim has grown up and seemingly still has that adventure in him. He's riding what is basically a surfboard with rockets, and I don't think I need to mention why this is the coolest thing ever. And this scene shows where Jim is mentally. He's a bit of a daredevil, seemingly only alive when putting himself in danger, until it all comes crashing down when the police show up. Jim is one of the most interesting characters I find in animated history. Now, before any of you history buffs tell me in the comment section, yes, I know this story is based on a book by Robert Louis Stevenson, but if you've read the book, you know that Jim Hawkins is slightly different in the original novel. Jim in the novel and more faithful adaptations is much younger and seemingly a bit more respectable, I guess. He has a sense of adventure, but he's more pitiful, warm, and much more of a down-on-his-luck child. Treasure Planet's version is more modern and up-to-date, which obviously reflects the world's steampunk and futuristic setting. He's rebellious, older, and seemingly naive. Jim's motivations are clear right from the start without really saying anything. The scene with his mother at the start is short, and Jim doesn't really say much, but from the little interactions he has with his mother and the conversation he hears between Dr. Delbert and his mother, we can see how conflicted he is. He wants to prove himself. He is at a loss of his own identity, unsure of what his life is and what the future holds. Then the plot happens with the arrival of Billy Bones.
James Pleiades Hawkins!
As if I need another reason to love Jim, I find out he has an awesome middle name. It's during this time what appears to be nothing more than scenes needed to advance the plot, and seemingly they are. The pirates attack the inn, Jim unlocks the map, but these small moments within reveal so much more. We see how Jim's actions affect those around him, particularly his mother. Even though he doesn't burn the inn to the ground, he seemingly leads the ones that do. We also just get to see how cool and interesting this world is. I love Dr. Doppler just giving us a load of unnecessary world jargon when the map reveals itself.
This is us, the planet Montresor. That's the Magellanic Cloud. Woo! The Coral Galaxy.
I love that this story doesn't explain the world. We don't know the time zone. Is Earth still around? Why are Jim and his mother seemingly the only human characters we meet? It allows the audiences to lean forward and think about the world they are in. It's one of those films that allows the audience to have its own interpretation, which I think really works for this story. There are so many random words that come out, which is definitely very classically steampunk.
When the Victorians were writing this sort of material, they were like, oh, this is great. Let's build a gun big enough to shoot a bullet at the moon, you know? And it's like, sure, and you know what's gonna get there? Paste. But you don't have to deal with that in steampunk. It has more of a sense of fun, and people like that.
All this builds the world without actually doing any world building. Who cares that we barely see any humans? Who cares how Jim's solar surfer works? Who cares how do they breathe in space? It doesn't matter when everything looks this good while doing it.
Jim, my boy, soon we'll be off to the spaceport.
Once again with the transitions. Hey look, it's the directors. As Jim and Dr. Doppler board the ship, we get introduced to an array of new characters, the hardened and stiff Mr. Arrow to the British and proper Captain Amelia. And can I just say, I love the relationship between Amelia and Mr. Arrow. Despite these two only really having 2 scenes together, you see so much about this relationship.
Mr. Arrow, I've checked this miserable ship from stem to stern, and as usual, it's spot on. Can you get nothing wrong?
You flatter me, Captain.
They bounce off each other incredibly well. It's almost like they could finish each other's sentences. The language they use is incredibly unique, and it seemingly doesn't dim it down for what would be the children in the audience. I mean, just listen to how Amelia talks.
To mule and blabber about a treasure map in front of this particular crew demonstrates a level of ineptitude that borders on the imbecilic. And I mean that in a very caring way.
Even for me, that's a lot of syllables in one sentence. But she feels like a character. Disney these days feel the need to make every main character talk the same, leading to every Disney princess being a bubbly, awkward character. But with characters like Captain Amelia, they basically wrote Shakespeare and put it in a Disney movie. I know Shakespeare isn't exactly in with the kids, hell, I don't think it ever was, but I for one am getting sick of every new Disney character who seemingly live in a remote part of the world and set in a much older time zone, talk like they're in a modern day high school.
If there's something you want to tell me, just tell me. Is there something you want to tell me?
We then get introduced to probably one of the most interesting characters in all of fiction.
Mr. Silver? Why, Mr. Arrow, sir. Bring in such fine-looking distinguished gents to grace my humble galley. Had I known, I'd have tucked in my shirt.
John Silver, like most of the cast, is incredibly unique. The way he talks all feels fresh and new. Despite Jim being wary of Silver at first, like Jim, we very quickly warm up to him. His humor, the way he moves and looks, he feels warm and comforting. John Silver's design is made to feel welcoming. He's tall but slightly on the wider side, giving him a very dad-bod look. And then we meet Morph.
Morph, you jiggle-headed blob of mischief. So that's where you was hiding.
This right here is my favorite thing ever. In the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
Disney are the king of silent comedic sidekicks, Pascal, Abu, Pluto, and I think Morph is definitely my favorite. While at first glance Morph contributes nothing more than some cute silly humor, and while he does do that very well, Morph serves a larger purpose. Morph, in essence, is the glue to hold Jim and Silver's relationship together. When we first meet Silver, we're meant to be very wary of him, but how can you fear him when he's this adorable?
You took a side to me. We've been together ever since.
It's Morph being the character that brings these characters together in his own adorable way. To skip ahead, even by the end, as Silver asks Morph to be with Jim, Morph is a way for the audience to see who we trust and care about. like the trust of a good dog. If Morph says Silver is good, then we're okay with him. We even see this when Jim and Silver argue in the third act, with Morph choosing Jim after being shouted at.
Hop to it. Now!
This is the only time we see Morph afraid of Silver, giving the audience a reason to fear him. He's the perfect way of letting the audience know what they are supposed to be thinking. And it's during this time when the film massively changes. It dials everything up to 11 to truly show why this film is so unique and special. If you've seen it, then you know which bit I'm talking about. The I'm Still Here sequence is a class of its own when it comes to Disney sequences. To the music, the lack of dialogue, to the meaning it has. The song by John Resnick is just an excellent song in its own right, but also by what makes it so unique. And to know that, we have to understand music a little bit more. Don't worry, I'm not knowledgeable on music, so this won't be filled with musical jargon, so I promise you this will make a lot of sense. Punk and rock music has always had a slightly rebellious edge to it, which I don't think Disney has ever really done before or since. The closest they've come to this type of music in another film would probably be Tarzan, but that score has much more of a grander and more orchestral feel. The song is made to represent fully who Jim is, what he's feeling and what he wants to be. The song is called I'm Still Here (Jim's Theme). The song reflects a lot of the culture surrounding this type of music. The rebellious nature of feeling different, of being an outcast. It's about Jim, but in a way, it reflects people who have known the same sort of feeling. There is something very brutal and honest about the song. Given how Jim is someone who is fighting to continue, fighting to prove himself, that he's still worth something. He's still fighting, he's not giving up. He is still here. He doesn't dream of riches or is fighting for someone else. He fights for himself to be seen, to be known. And if you don't think that is the most incredible motivation, then I don't know what else to tell you. But also it's during this point we see the relationship between Jim and Silver, seeing how Jim is repressing about the relationship he had with his father, and lack thereof of a father figure in his life, to which we see how Silver helps with this. But also, we get to see how Silver comes to care for Jim, letting Jim prove his worth to him, seeing Jim finally being allowed to prove his worth as he flies the skiff through the space is nothing short of amazing. Jim is finally allowed to express himself in the only way he knows how, but also, he has someone to share it with. It's all backed by this incredible song that feels nothing like Disney has ever done before, and every time I watch it, my eyes widen, and to this day, it's one of my favourite scenes put to screen. And then comes the greatest speech to ever be spoken. The creme de la creme of speeches. The thing that made men cry and boys absolutely weep. Let's just watch it.
Now, you listen to me, James Hawkins. You got the makings of greatness in you. But you gotta take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. And when the time comes, you get the chance to really test the cut of your sails and show what you're made of. Well, I hope I'm there, catching some of the light coming off you that day.
Man, I cry every time I hear this. Jim simply being told that he matters, that he's worth something he's never heard his entire life. Jim isn't the chosen one or is going through a hero's arc. He's just a kid who didn't have a father around to tell him he's worth something. And all this comes from a character we are supposed to be wary of. This raw message about feeling unworthy and lost is something anyone can relate to. And just as this beautiful message comes through, it very quickly comes crashing down as Jim finds out the pirates are planning a mutiny. But despite all these things, we see the conflict within Silver, how he's not able to shoot Jim. It keeps the audience on edge of not knowing what Silver is thinking. Then, as the film goes on into the film's third act, we move on to what probably most people agree is the film's weakest point.
Solitude's fun. Don't get me wrong, for heaven's sakes, after 100 years, you got a little nuts!
Ben is not a bad character by any means. He represents the character Ben Gunn from the book, a character who is marooned on the island by Captain Flint. At first watch, Ben is not something to be desired. He's loud, voiced by a comedian, and at first it seems like he's trying too hard to be funny, when perhaps the film didn't need it. But after a few more watches, I can't lie, I find myself warming up to him. Giving a robot memory problems when his actual memory circuit is missing works well for this world, and even making him more part of the plot when we find out he was Captain Flint's navigator. Ben is one of those characters that feels very last minute. His character works in a book because you still have a few pages to go before the story ends, but in the context of a film, he feels really last minute. Every other character is introduced at the start to give us a reason to care about them. Even Mr. Arrow, a character who generally has less screen time than Ben, is more felt and cared for because he's introduced early in the film. Ben, however, feels like an afterthought because of how late he's introduced. But I find him to be a slight breath of fresh air to give Jim someone to talk to, especially in the third act. Dr. Doppler and Amelia are out due to their subplot of being together, but this gives us one of the best jokes ever, by the way.
She's lost her mind!
But you gotta help her.
Dang it, Jim, I'm an astronomer, not a doctor. I mean, I am a doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor. I have a doctorate. It's not the same thing. You can't help people with a doctorate. You just sit there and you're useless.
For those who don't know how perfect this joke is, you just need to know. But this is the moment where Jim can prove his worth, and he can't do that with Captain Amelia due to her being the captain, so it makes sense to render Captain Amelia out in the finale for a bit. And obviously Morph isn't a huge conversationalist, so he's out. But he can come along to give us some classic slapstick humour just like this. So Jim needed someone to keep the plot moving and give him someone to talk to, and I find Ben very entertaining. I think Martin Short does a fun job at voicing him. He gives him a lot of personality in this wacky steampunk world. As the film comes to the climax, we find out the whole planet holds the treasure and Captain Flint rigged it to explode if anyone came looking. And obviously, we get the best scene that fully rounds off Silver's character.
Oh, blast me for a fool!
I mean, of course he had to choose between the treasure and Jim, and of course he chose Jim. Despite this story being adapted many times, and despite this film being arguably predictable, especially with its character decisions, Silver choosing Jim is kinda perfect, and I don't care that we knew it was gonna happen. It truly rounds off Silver as someone who can be ruthless when he needs to be, but ultimately chooses the right option every time, really solidifying Silver as an anti-villain, which is something I think we've never really seen Disney do before. Considering how they made a name for themselves with simple stories about good versus evil, Silver goes against everything we expect from our stories, walking that grey line between hero and villain. The story finishes with the coolest action sequence with a callback to its opening. The music is just a more orchestrated version. It's such an incredible callback, and seeing Jim save everyone is incredible. But that isn't before we get to the film's true climax.
You're something special, Jim. You're going to rattle the stars, you are.
I swear, this scene is beautiful, and it doesn't get enough credit. Jim letting Silver go is where the heart of this whole movie comes together. The movie has awesome action, the coolest character designs, but it is nothing without this incredible relationship. Silver tells Jim he's going to rattle the stars, and as I mentioned, Silver leaves Morph to Jim as a favor, and in one of the greatest goodbyes, Silver leaves. Despite Silver's character being questionable, you want him to get away. He's a pirate with a heart of gold, and despite all these flaws, you care about him. It shows how important he was to Jim with one final look at the stars and seeing his face. Treasure Planet is one of those films from Disney that feels incredibly unique. Sure, it has a wonderful premise of putting Treasure Island in space and was doing a mix of 2D and 3D animation way before the Spider-Verse movies. It has awesome action, wonderful characters, a world you can sink yourself into. And yet, despite it being nominated for Best Animated Picture, these days the film is sadly forgotten about. It tells the story of a boy who just wanted someone to tell them they're worth something, to keep fighting, to show that you won't give up. It tells us to rattle the stars, chart our own course and stick to it. I find this so much more meaningful than a lion who wants to take back his kingdom or a snow queen who can't control her powers. I'm not trying to crap on those movies, by the way, but the idea that we're all worth something and having someone to believe in is just so much more of a universal and simple message. And in the end, Silver didn't give Jim the treasure. He gave him the one thing he never had, someone who believed in him. Treasure Planet came for me in the perfect time, a time when I wasn't sure about myself. Hearing someone say that they are worth something in this world is something I still need, even now doing this YouTube video. We are all worth something, and sometimes the fight to keep going is the hardest battle. So if you made it this far, I wanted to say thank you for still being here. Because we are all still here. So thank you for joining me in this video. I wanted to do this video due to my Treasure Planet review being a little bit quite outdated at this point, so I really hope you enjoyed for what is essentially just my love letter to this film. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and drop in the comment section how you feel about Treasure Planet. I'm small here on YouTube, so every comment, like, and subscriber helps me out massively. Thank you so much for watching me as always, guys, and I will see you all very soon.